go outside. The snow is falling down and every child is having so much fun. The snowman is twice the size as me with a smile as quirky as mine.
We are going through my favourite books that I read in the whole of 2023. I'm not gonna lie, it's not been a good year for reading for me. I am gonna do the annual video that I do where I go through every book I've read this year, but spoiler, it's not been a great year. Way behind in my reading goal, like way behind. And also just didn't read many good books, which is really disappointing. But I'm gonna go through the 5 best of the year, but I don't think any of them blew me away. I don't think I can do them in any order. I don't think I can do like 1 to 5. I'm just gonna go with my 5 favourite. I'll pick my favourite, like the #1 spot, but that's all I can do. Right, let's go with, we'll do my favourite last, and we'll go with a very popular book first, and that was Mexican Gothic. Like I say, none of these blew me away, so this didn't be like, whoa, this is an incredible thriller. I am a thriller reader, so this wasn't like, oh my god, this blew me away, but it did have more creepy elements than books that I normally read, and I enjoyed that. I struggled with some parts. I think this is a book of 2 halves. The first half, way too slow for me, but the second half, nice and speedy. Enjoyed it. Really good twist. I will read the blurb in case you haven't read this and are looking to read it. Glamorous socialite Noemi Taboda's life of parties and entertainment is interrupted when she receives a frantic letter from her newlywed cousin who is begging to be rescued from a mysterious doom. Noemi immediately heads to High Place, an estate in the mountains of Mexico owned by the secluded Doyle family, determined to discover what is troubling her beloved cousin. The fortunes of the silver mining Doyles have eroded and their house is a dilapidated relic. Even more worrisome are the inhabitants of High Place. There's the alluring yet menacing new husband, his foreboding father, and his taciturn relatives. Soon the house itself begins invading Noemi's dreams with visions of blood and doom. She must tread carefully, for there are many secrets behind the walls of High Place. Noemi may soon find it impossible to leave this enigmatic house behind. I did really enjoy it. It is really good. Read the second half very, very quickly. I think I actually read that on a vlog. And some parts, disgusting. You read it and you're like, what have I just read? But you do just have to get through the very slow first half. Next one, a bit more of a, like, not serious, but like, yeah, a little bit more of a serious book. Notes on an Execution by Danya Kukafka. And I did really enjoy this. So let me read the blurb before I talk about it. Ansel Packer is scheduled to die in 12 hours, but this is not his story. Ansel doesn't want to die. He wants to be celebrated, understood. Yet now he awaits the same fate he forced on those girls years ago. This is the story of the women who survive. As the clock ticks down, a mother, a sister, and a detective reckon with the choices that culminate in tragedy, the impact on those in its wake, and the possibility of redemption. It was very different to what I thought it was going to be from the blurb, but I really enjoyed it. It's basically trying to tell the story of a murderer without focusing on the murderer too much. Like, it focuses on his mother, it focuses on the detective who finds the girls that he killed, and it focuses on a near-miss kind of victim. I actually got the Waterstones special edition of this, which includes an essay from the author at the back, and I loved reading that essay. It really solidified the point of the book for me. So if you're going to read this, I would recommend getting the one with the essay in the back. I like the perspective on it, and it's telling it from a different way, and I think it gives a little bit more perspective to how the world treats murderers and how they're like glamorized, and how that really, really shouldn't be the case. And I feel like that's something that's said a lot, that we shouldn't glamorize murderers, but I feel like this book makes you think about it a bit more. And I've never been one for reading like true crime anyway and getting heavily involved in true crime, but reading this, I haven't really looked at true crime the same. I've been very like this with like the publication of Dharma, was that the beginning of this year? And listening to the family of the victims of that, it just, I don't know, this year I'm very much like, I don't know how, I don't really like how we view true crime really in the media. And obviously this is like a crime murder book, but it's fictional. And I think it's very educational and makes you think about how you view murderers as well, I think. It's not like here, this is how you should view murderers. It just makes you reflect on it. And I loved it being from the perspective of the women in his life. There is a bit of perspective from his side, but it's not from him. I do think you should just read it to understand what I mean, but I really did enjoy this and I think it should get more hype around it. Next we'll go with another well-known one, and that is Circe. I really, really didn't think I was gonna like this. I've said it many times in my books videos, but I don't like Song of Achilles. Really didn't enjoy that book. I read that book last year. Found it very, very boring. Didn't like the way it was written, so I was not planning on reading another Madeline Miller book. I put on my story when I read Song of Achilles that I didn't enjoy it, and somebody replied saying try Circe, because there's a lot of us who didn't like Song of Achilles but loved Circe. I really enjoyed this book. I loved the way it was written. I feel like, I mean, the font is like not too small but pretty small, but I feel like I read a much bigger book than what this is. Like, the content of this book is huge. It's massive. And I feel like instead of telling a story, this is Circe's story. Like, this goes from Circe at the beginning to Circe, not at the end, but like it tells her full life. And I loved that. It felt very much like Madeline Miller didn't care about the rules of storytelling. It was just kind of like this is her life story and all of it in between. And I loved that. Like, I loved it. It felt different to other books. And it was just jam-packed with content. Like, it was, I wouldn't call it like I probably would call it fast-paced, but it felt more full of content rather than fast-paced. Just a lot went on in this. I will again read the blurb. In the house of Helios, god of the sun and the mightiest of the Titans, a daughter is born. Circe is strange, not powerful and terrible like her father, nor gorgeous and mercenary like her mother, but she has a dark power of her own, witchcraft. When Circe's gift threatens the gods, she is banished to the island of Ahdieh, where she hones her occult craft, casting spells, gathering herbs, and taming wild beasts. Yet a woman who stands alone cannot live in peace for long, and among her island's guests is an unexpected visitor, the mortal Odysseus, for whom Circe will risk everything. Circe's tale is a vivid epic of family rivalry, love, and loss, the inextinguishable song of women burning hot and bright in the darkness of a man's world. Obviously, I've read the blurb to you there, but I would actually recommend going into this trying to forget about the blurb I've just read. So if you buy this, don't read the blurb, just read it, because that's what I did. I knew I was going to read it at some point. Once I've got a book in my house, I don't read the blurb again. I prefer to read it without knowing what's going on. And I like doing that with that because I had no idea what this was going to be about. I had no idea where it was going to go, and that's how I preferred it. So if you can, forget about the blurb, forget about the story, forget about it. If you can, buy this now, read it in like 8 months' time, because I feel like that was a really good experience for reading this. If you liked A Song of Achilles, I don't think you necessarily will dislike that. I don't think it's like if you like this one, you'll not like that one. But they are very different writing styles, and this one was for me. Penultimate one, for I reveal my favourite of the year, is The Wrath and the Dawn by Renée, Ahdieh. Correct me if that's incorrect. This was one that I picked up on the fly when I was in Waterstones. I do go off vibes. I do judge books by the cover. Who doesn't? And I picked this one up from just a display that it had on. I hadn't really heard anything about it at all. Let me read the blurb. Every dawn brings horror to a different family in a land ruled by a killer. Khaled, the 18-year-old Caliph of Khorasan, takes a new bride each night, only to have her executed at sunrise. So it is a terrible surprise when 16-year-old Shahzad, if that is incorrect pronunciation, again, correct me, volunteers to marry Khaled. But she does so with a clever plan to stay alive and exact revenge on the Caliph for the murder of her best friend and countless other girls. Shazi's wit and will get her through to the dawn that no others have seen, but with a catch. She may be falling in love with the murderer. Shazi discovers the villainous boy king is not all that he seems, and neither are the deaths of so many girls. It's up to her to uncover the reason for the murders and to break the cycle once and for all. I bought this at a very similar time that I read I Am Widow. I thought they were going to be similar. They're not. If you're reading that and hearing that and saying, that sounds like I Am Widow, it sounds it from that blurb. It's not. Don't worry. Completely different. I would say this is more of a romance story compared to I Am Widow. I Am Widow is more of like a social commentary, very progressive. This is just a romance. I feel like this is the most romancy book I've read all year. I have read the second one this year, as you can tell. That's not in my favourites. The first one's better than the second one. I felt like it was not disappointing because it was still good, but I didn't like it as much as the first one. This is full of like a bit more mystery and intrigue. I just felt like the experience of reading this was better. It's a bit more of a medium-paced book. It's definitely not fast. I think this one's down as one of my favourite books because I wasn't expecting much from it. Like I was just like, yeah, I'll read it. But then I actually really enjoyed it. It was really unexpected for how much I enjoyed reading it. And I am not a romance reader, so I didn't think I was going to enjoy it. But I did. I loved reading this culture as well. And it's set in what is now Afghanistan, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed reading this culture. So if anybody has any recommendations within like Middle Eastern countries and don't heavily involve religion and things like that, I would be interested in reading them. But I did really enjoy this book. Right, last one. I think is my favourite of the year. Like I say, I'm not entirely sure, but I think it's either this or probably Circe, and that is The Luminaries. If you're a subscriber, you'll have heard me talk about this book because it is freaking beautiful. I've talked about it in Waterstone's haul. I talked about it in a read with me. It's beautiful. Look at it. Stunning. Look at the side. Stunning. I have also seen the second one is out now, and it does have a beautiful spine. So I am over the moon. I do need to purchase it. But this is the Luminaries by Susan Dennard. Yeah, it is Dennard. So like I said, beautiful. That's why I picked it up. It's a stunning book, but I did really enjoy reading it. I read it around Halloween, which was just perfect. Completely recommend. It is a very Halloween-esque book. Very like creepy, spooky. You're in a fantasy world that involves monsters. It was good reading this at Halloween. I feel like the things that I struggled with it were just pacing sometimes was a bit slow, but other times pacing was really good. Again, it feels like a set of book. Like this feels like the first in a series. This feels very much like kind of like a prequel. Like it feels like an origin story, but I did still enjoy it. I like the characters. I like the plot. I struggled with the trope a little bit. It is a bit of like a not miscommunication trope, but I think I'll leave it at like kind of a miscommunication trope because I don't want to spoil it, which I personally don't like, but it was still good. Let me read the blurb. Hemlock Falls isn't like other towns. You won't find it on a map, your phone won't work here, and the forest outside town might kill you. Winnie Wednesday wants nothing more than to join the Luminaries, the ancient order that protects humanity from the nightmares that rise in the forest of Hemlock Falls each night. Ever since her father was exposed as a traitor, Winnie and her family have been shunned, but on her 16th birthday, she can take the deadly Luminary Hunter trials and restore her family's good name, or die trying. In order to survive, Winnie must enlist the help of the one person who can train her, Jay Friday, resident bad boy and Winnie's ex-best friend. While Jay might be the best hunter in Hemlock Falls, he also knows more about the forest's nightmares than he should, and together he and Winnie will discover a danger lurking in Hemlock Falls that no one is prepared for. Not all monsters can be slain, and not all nightmares are confined to the dark. So again, I feel like that blurb isn't the best at describing what goes on in there, because that feels like it's describing what's going to happen in the series. Like the bit at the end where it's like, together he and Winnie will discover a danger lurking in Hemlock Falls that no one is prepared for. I'd say that's a little bit misleading that that's what happens in this. It's like they start to look at something and it doesn't get completely discovered in this. The genre it falls into is definitely fantasy, and again, probably medium paced. Good inclusivity as well from what I can remember. I will be going over my star ratings in the video that I talked about at the beginning of this video and going through why I rated it in Storygraph and all those questions. This is just more like, here are my top books for the year. But I'm very looking forward to reading the rest of this series. It feels like it's going to be a big series. I hope it is. I haven't really heard many people talking about it, so I hope it gets bigger because it does feel like it could be a really good long-running series. And like I say, I'm very excited for reading the next one. But yeah, that is my top 5 books for this year. Like I say, not been a great year for reading, so if anybody has any recommendations, please let me know. I love reading thriller, fantasy, drama, those kind of vibes. If you enjoyed this, please make sure to leave the video a like and make sure you subscribe to see that video that's coming up, going through all the videos I've read. You want to hear some of the rubbish books that I've read this year. I know you do, so make sure you're subscribed. But even if you don't do any of those things, thank you so much for watching and making it till the end, and I shall hopefully see you in another day of Vlogmas. We have 2 videos left, so I hope I will see you in another one of them. Bye.